If you like the idea of a smart home, where you can take your regular lights and make them smart, or maybe you just want a simple way to control all your smart devices locally from one place instead of using 10 different phone apps, you'll need a computer to act as your home server. Basically the brain of your house. It doesn't need to be big or expensive. A tiny single board computer like this ZimaBoard 2 is perfect for the job. Today I'm going to cover a few different things. I will show how I set up this little board to run Home Assistant in a virtual machine, turning it into a small NAS for local shared storage, and making your light smart using a Zigbee switch, programming it to do more than just turn on the lights. Before we start, let's take a look at the hardware that makes all of this possible. For its size, ZimaBoard 2 connectivity is impressive. It features an Intel N150 CPU and 16GB of RAM, giving us enough power to run a full Home Assistant VM and multiple Docker apps at the same time. It has a PCIe slot for future upgrades and two SATA 3.0 ports, which are perfect for our local NAS setup. Now, since this is going to be running 24/7, things can get a little warm. To keep everything stable and make sure it doesn't slow down, I'm going to install this cooling fan included in the accessories box. It's a super simple addition, and you shouldn't judge it based on its size, because even a small fan like this makes a huge difference in keeping the board cool while it's working. It's definitely worth it to keep the board cool and running fast, and the best part is that it's completely silent. I'm just going to line this up to make sure it's perfectly straight, because I can't stand it when things are crooked. Please tell me I'm not the only one. Because the only hard drives I have are the ones storing my personal files, for today I will use these two SATA SSDs. They are 120GB each, and like all SATA SSDs, they are 2.5 inch, while the rack tray is designed for 3.5 inch drives. The first thing that came in my mind when I realized this was that it would be nice to have a 3D printer, because I didn't have one. Well, guess what? Now I do. Yes, when I was contacted by Prusa and they offered to send me a Core ONE Plus, I honestly thought it wasn't real, especially since there was no contract or script to follow. They simply asked me to include it in a video, which I'm more than happy to do, because I was really curious about this printer anyway. This is my first 3D printer, so I don't have much to compare it to. I can't give a super technical opinion on the print quality yet, but I will show you what I've printed so far, and I will let the results speak for themselves. For this project, I needed two adapters to make my SSDs fit in the rack tray. I checked printables.com and found a great model made by Johnny ZG. All the settings were already configured in the file, so I just selected version 3. I opened it in EasyPrint, where you can see the model and tweak things if you want, and then I printed it using PETG filament. I really enjoyed watching the whole process, especially since this was my very first print. Just look at the quality of this first layer. I think it's impressive, but I'll let you be the judge of that, because I know there are a lot of people out there who know way more about 3D printing than I do. One thing I personally like about Prusa printers is their focus on repairability and documentation. From what I've seen so far, spare parts and support are easy to access, which gives me some peace of mind. And since it integrates locally via Prusa Link, it works really well with my Home Assistant setup, where I can monitor and control the print in real time. I'm really happy with it, and I want to thank Prusa for making this possible. I think this orange fits okay with the silver. If not, go easy on me. Anyway, this was the only PETG filament I had. Once ZimaOS boots up, it shows the IP address right here. Let's type it into the browser and start the setup process. After accepting the privacy terms and creating an account, we will be taken to the dashboard. It has a really clean look with widgets on the left side that can be enabled or disabled from the widget settings, and on the right side you'll find the installed apps. Once I connected the SSDs, ZimaOS detects them automatically. With just a few clicks, I was able to create a RAID storage. Since I connected only two drives, I had to choose between RAID 1 and RAID 0. For this example, I chose RAID 1, which is better for storing important files. Once the storage is created, it can be shared on the local network using Samba. From Windows, you can create a shortcut to that shared storage for easy access. You just need to enter the ZimaOS IP address followed by the storage name. The same thing can be done from a phone. On an iPhone, this is very easy using the Files app. After connecting to the Samba server using the ZimaOS account, the storage will appear inside the Files app. This way, whenever you want to save photos or videos to your local storage, you can simply select the Files app and choose the shared storage. Once a file is saved on this shared storage, any device on your network can access it. This is Papi. I haven't shown him until now, but he's been supervising the filming from the background. Make sure to give him a like because he deserves it. Today we'll use SSH for a few configurations. It can be enabled from developer's mode. Then, simply log in using the ZimaOS account. One of the most powerful parts of this operating system is the App Store. Here, we can find hundreds of applications that can be installed with just one click. Just like a quick example, let's install Home Assistant. Keep in mind though that these applications run as Docker containers. While this approach is fast and lightweight, the Home Assistant version available here does not include the supervisor or the built-in add-on store. This means it may not be the best choice for beginners who want a fully automated experience. After installation, the app appears on the dashboard, similar to a mobile app icon. The initial setup is straightforward and only takes a few seconds. If we go into settings, we can see the biggest difference between this container version and the full Home Assistant OS. The add-on store is missing. With the container version, we get more flexibility, but also more responsibility when it comes to installation, configuration, and networking. For beginners, this can feel more challenging compared to the fully managed experience in Home Assistant OS. Now, let's install the full version of Home Assistant in a virtual machine using ZVM. From here, you can install any Linux distro and even Windows. Since we need Home Assistant OS, a quick Google search takes us to the Home Assistant website. And under Other Systems, we copy the VM image link from the KVM Proxmox version. We paste the link into ZVM and wait for the download to complete. For Home Assistant, 2 CPU cores and 4 GB of RAM should be more than enough for now. For the network, we select Bridge to Ethernet 0. You can find your specific interface name on the dashboard, in the network widget. On my first try, ZVM said it didn't support the source file because of .exe at the end of the extension. I switched over to SSH and changed directory to the folder where the VM files was saved, in downloads inside the ISO directory, and ran the file command. This showed me that the file wasn't actually exe compressed, so the fix was simple. I just had to rename the file to remove the .exe extension using the move command. If you get a permission denied error, try running the same command with sudo. If none of this works, or you just want to avoid using terminal commands, you can rename it directly from ZimaOS files. Just like in Windows, go in Downloads, inside the ISO folder, simply rename the file to remove the .exe. Back in ZVM, after removing .exe from the installation image, I was able to successfully create a virtual machine. Just like in the ZimaOS case, after booting, Home Assistant shows the IP address we need to access the dashboard. We wait for it to finish, create an account, select your country, and that's pretty much all we need to have Home Assistant up and running on this tiny single board computer. The light switches I'm using in my house are Zigbee, mainly because Wi-Fi versions often can't be controlled locally and usually requires their cloud. In some cases, Wi-Fi switches can be controlled locally, but it usually requires a lot of work or some reverse engineering if they weren't designed for that. With Zigbee and Home Assistant, everything runs locally, so there is no need to rely on the cloud. To control Zigbee devices with Home Assistant, you will need a Zigbee gateway. Mine is a son of Zigbee Dongle Plus, which costs around €20 on Amazon at the time of recording. The software we will use to manage the Zigbee devices is called Zigbee2MQTT. Even if it's not listed in Home Assistant, a quick Google search will take us to their GitHub page. Here, look for the big blue button, enter your Home Assistant IP, and this will add a repository to Home Assistant, so that Zigbee2MQTT appears in the App Store list. From there we install it, enable the watchdog, and select Show in Sidebar for quick access. With the software setup almost ready, let's stop the Home Assistant VM and connect the Zigbee dongle to the ZimaBoard too, preferably using a USB extension to avoid interference. Since Home Assistant is running in a virtual machine, it can see the USB devices connected directly to the ZimaBoard too. That's why we need to pass through our Zigbee dongle to the VM. To do this, we need to switch back to SSH. As I showed at the beginning, SSH can be accessed from settings, but the easiest way is to install the SSH app from the ZimaOS store. First, let's get the virtual machines running in ZVM. Since we have only Home Assistant, it will be the only one displayed. Copy its name, then run this command followed by the name of your VM. This opens the VM configuration file. By default, it opens in Vim Editor, which is powerful but tricky for beginners. So let's exit and switch the default editor to a simpler one, like Nano, which is easier to navigate. Running the edit command again now opens the file in Nano. Use the arrow keys to move the input and place it exactly between the two controllers, and create an empty line by pressing enter. Always make sure everything is aligned as it was. Copying and pasting the code may break the alignment, so make sure it matches my example exactly. The first line aligns with the rest of the configuration. The second line has 2 spaces, the next 2 lines have 4 spaces, then 2 spaces again, and the last line aligns with the first one. Next, we need a vendor ID and product ID for the Zigbee dongle. Open a new SSH session and run this command. This lists all USB devices connected to ZimaBoard 2. My Zigbee dongle appears as Silicon Labs. The first 4 characters represents the vendor ID, and the next 4 the product ID. Just make sure to keep the 0x in front of them. To save the VM configuration in Nano, press Ctrl X, then Y to confirm, and Enter to keep the file name. After confirmation that the VM config was saved, go back to ZVM and start the Home Assistant VM. Back in Home Assistant, the last thing we need is to install Mosquito Broker. Create an account and start the add-on. Mosquito Broker allows Zigbee2MQTT to communicate with Home Assistant. It acts like a messenger between your Zigbee devices and Home Assistant, sending sensor data and device updates in real time, so all your devices appear and can be controlled inside Home Assistant. Now open Zigbee2MQTT. In the Phone Devices list, you should see your Zigbee dongle. Select it and scroll down to MQTT Settings. Replace localhost with your Home Assistant IP, enter the MQTT account credentials, and on the bottom press Submit. While Zigbee2MQTT is loading, let me show you my light switch. It has a glass panel that can be easily removed with a screwdriver. On the back of the switch there are 3 wires. The live wire goes to L and the neutral wire goes to N. I live in Europe, and here, in many switch boxes, you usually don't have a neutral wire. So if adding a new wire feels too complicated, you can look for a Zigbee switch that doesn't require a neutral. I actually have one like that, and I will show it to you a bit later. It's a 3-gang switch, which means it has 3 outputs, L1, L2 and L3. This split the live wire into 3 separate channels, so you can control 3 different lights. In my office, I only have one light, so I connected it to the middle terminal. In other rooms, I also try to connect the main light to the middle button, because it makes things easier when explaining to guests. The other buttons can be used to control other lights or devices from that room. Technically, you could control anything in your house, but controlling devices from the same room just makes more sense. To put the switch into pairing mode, press and hold one of the buttons. From what I've seen, this is pretty standard for this type of switches regardless of the brand. Once the switch is in pairing mode, go to Zigbee2MQTT. On the right side of the Pair Me Join button, there is a small arrow that lets you choose which router will handle the pairing. At the moment, we only have the coordinator available, which is our Zigbee dongle, so we select it and press Pair Me Join. Once the device connects to the network, the switch will stop blinking. Let's rename it to Office Light and enable the option to update the name in Home Assistant as well. This switch exposes all 3 buttons to Home Assistant. If I control the middle one, you can see it actually turning the light in my office on and off. Since we talked about controlling other devices using one of the switch buttons, let me show you an example. We'll use one button to power my new 3D printer on and off. The Core ONE Plus can be powered on and off using the physical switch on the back. Instead, we leave the back switch turned on and connect the printer's power cord to a Zigbee smart plug like this one, which we then plug into the power strip. Once the Zigbee plug is connected to power, it automatically enters pairing mode. So let's go back to Zigbee2MQTT and allow this device to join our network. After it's connected, let's rename it to Prusa Plug. Always try to give your devices short and clean names. You'll see how important this is later when we start creating automations. Turning the plug on powers the printer on, and turning it off cuts the power. In this way, we simulate the Core ONE power switch using the Zigbee plug. To synchronize the state of one of the switch buttons with the Prusa plug, let's go to Automation and Scenes in Home Assistant Settings. In the Blueprint section, click Discover More Blueprints. This will open a new tab on the Home Assistant forum. Searching for synchronized states will take us to the blueprint we need. From here, we can simply import the blueprint into Home Assistant and use it to create a simple automation. We just need to select the entities we want to synchronize. In my case, I selected the left button of the Office Light switch and the Prusa plug. Now we just need to give the automation a name and save it. After that, we can go back to Zigbee2MQTT dashboard to see the state synchronization in action. These Zigbee plugs can also be used to control other devices like a lamp, a fan, a kettle, and so on. I promise to show you the Zigbee switch that doesn't require a neutral wire. Just like the switch in the office, it has the same glass panel. I recommend keeping the screws from your old switches, because the ones that come with these Zigbee switches were not compatible with my switch box. On the back, it has the same labels for 3 outputs, even though this switch has only one button. However, only the middle one has a screw terminal. So I connected the live wire to L and the wire going to the light to L2 output. This switch controls my kitchen light, but I don't use it very often because of its position. Instead, I synchronize its state with the left button of my living room light switch, and did the same thing with the dining table light switch, which is right here. So with one switch, I can control 3 different lights, without needing them to be connected with wires. These automations are very basic, but as you can see, they can be useful in certain situations. Another advantage of having these lights connected to Home Assistant is that you can create automations like this, where the lights turn on automatically when you enter a specific zone. I won't go into details here because it's something I'm still experimenting with and it needs a lot of tweaking to work properly. And that's it for today. I hope you learned something. If you made it this far and enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, a big thank you to my channel members for supporting the channel. Alright, see you in the next one.